Welcome to Workstyle Stories, because life changes and every life is different. This week, we're going to be talking about seizing the moment, about following your dreams, and about working in a different culture, different country. And to talk about all of those wonderful things, I'm joined by Nicola. Hello, Nicola.
Hello.
Welcome to Workstyle Stories. And actually, this is our first ever Workstyle Stories live, where we're joined by people who are with us in the Zoom space and who are going to ask us questions along the way, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today to be part of the Workstyle Stories Live, the first one. But before we get into all of the good stuff, Nicola, would you mind just telling us very briefly who you are, where you are, and what you do?
So I'm Nicola. I am in the French Alps, where it is very snowy and very cold today. And I am a freelance consultant working mainly with non-profits in all sorts of things to do with funding, partnership, strategy, all that kind of stuff.
You're in the French Alps. I mean,
I am.
that sounds amazing. I think you're living my dream. And presumably it's snowing and you've been out for a ski or some sort of activity today, have you?
Not yet, but that's on the list of things to do as soon as we wrap this up, is to get outside and enjoy it. Yep.
Amazing. I'm so envious. So you're in the Alps. I mean, it sounds like you're living the dream. What was it that took you there? Because presumably you haven't always been in the Alps. So what took you there, and what were the circumstances behind that?
So we've been here 2 years now. We originally came for a year to see what it was like, and we're still here. Okay. Before that, we were living in London and did the whole London jobs, careers thing. And it just got to a point where basically that wasn't particularly interesting anymore, or we felt that there was more out there to be done. There were a few life events, and then of course there was the Brexit vote as well, which kind of meant that actually it focused our minds in terms of, if we are going to go and live in France again, because we've both lived here separately before, we kind of need to get around to doing it sooner rather than later. So we did. We basically came and had a look and did that thing that everyone tells you not to do, and bought the first house we saw.
I mean, it just sounds so reckless. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been as a decision to make, to turn your back on London. But it sounds like you'd lived in France before, so obviously something that you and your husband had talked about as a possibility. And then the Brexit vote and the shifting circumstances being the thing that kind of made you focus the mind on what you wanted and force you into it. That's amazing and so inspiring. And it's something that we hear a lot in Workstyle Stories, that there's always something that people have as a vision or a dream, or something that they want to achieve, or something that's happening that doesn't feel quite right. And then something happens in life that changes your perspective on that thing, and you have to just go after it and make that call. So you've gone off, you bought the first house you've seen in the Alps, and you're still there. So it's obviously not gone too badly. So talk to me a bit about what's your work style like then, and how do you fit work and around skiing and all the other awesome stuff you must be able to do?
So it's, it is a balance, but then everything is, and it has to be said, it's easier during the sort of out of season period, so out of the summer and winter season, when there isn't skiing to be done, and the resorts aren't open and the lifts aren't open. So there's slightly less temptation. But it's just a case of kind of, actually, these are all the things we want to do, and working out how we can do them and how we can make the most of living in an amazing place. And as people say, it's where people come on holiday. You don't kind of think of people living there. And when you do live here, it is slightly different. You tend not to do the sort of things that you would do if you were here on holiday all the time, because you can't, you have to live. And we've got an apartment in the ground floor of the house as well that we let out, so we have to keep that kind of turning over and welcoming people there. But it's, you can't argue with it, basically.
It sounds amazing. I mean, so I live in the countryside in rural Oxfordshire, and if I talk to people about what I do, they struggle to grasp that I'm working with people all around the world. That, like, the local rural community isn't used to that kind of conversation. I bet it's pretty similar, if not even more so, in the French
Absolutely.
Alps.
Absolutely.
It must be a real cultural like clash, really, a culture clash between, you know, your work life and your you know, the culture of the environment in which you live and the people you mix with and stuff. That must be quite I would think quite a stark contrast, and potentially difficult to manage, or not.
It is, but
How does
it
it
is
feel?
definitely a contrast, but I don't think it's that difficult to manage. It's kind
Okay.
of, you know, it's just different aspects of your life that you
Yeah.
have. And
Yeah.
so, yes, the economy here is the skiing industry and agriculture, basically. So
Yeah.
most people here are involved in either one of those two things. The
Yeah. Great.
concept of working from home and, like you say, being connected to people all over the world and doing video calls and all that sort of thing is quite alien to people who often haven't worked in an office environment, so don't, you know, they just don't have that in their sphere of reference. So you do in
Yeah.
some ways feel like you're living two different lives, but I actually quite like that contrast and that different things, you know, it sort of enables you to have a foot in both camps almost.
Amazing. So do you think this is the long-term future for you?
God, I've never made any plans, Alex. I have never been one of those people who says in 5 years' time, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be doing that. And that question in interviews, traditional interviews, always terrified me, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's certainly, you know, where we are for the time being and where we're going to be for a while. And then we'll see what happens, basically. But yeah,
Amazing.
there's nothing to be argued with now.
I think your commitment to your own sense of happiness and sense of self to make that decision, knowing that it would be difficult and potentially upsetting for family members and stuff to be, you know, geographically apart, so far apart, is you know, such a big decision. But I'm incredibly inspired by the way you've taken it, and I'm sure that, you know, there are lots of us that would love to feel, you know, that capable, that confident, and, you know, maybe we all just need our catalyst or our thing that pushes us into those bigger decisions. And thank you very much indeed, Nicola, for sharing your story with us. It's been
You're
incredibly
welcome.
inspiring, and I'm looking forward to hearing what our live audience has got to say and to ask of us. But for now, I'll wrap up for the video. We've been Workstyle Stories. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.